Hey guys, what's up? It's Public back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at the legendary crafting system and how you acquire all these legendaries and what you do with them once you get that power. Talk about upgrading and all that stuff with how the system works, guys. Let's get started. Okay, so first things first, how does the system actually work? So there is a new system inside of Shadowlands for legendaries that's not just this kind of random drop stuff we've had, or you just get it, or whatever else it was in the past. Now we're actually crafting these legendaries. So you're going to need some assistance from a kind of main gear profession crafting system, which is tailoring if you're a priest, or clothy, all that good stuff, or jewel crafting depending on the legendary you want to slot. Each power that you get actually has specific slots they work on. So for example, the Leap of Faith legendary for priests in general can be crafted on a wrist piece, which you would get from a tailor making bracers, or a ring piece, right? So you'd actually go to a jewel crafter for that piece, right? So depending on what you want and what slots that power can be used on, you need to make that specific base item gear before you can go kind of continue on, right? And you'll need that base item depending on the eye level you want to do. It will actually cost more to both craft it in terms of like the currency you need and the mats you need from the profession, right? So keep that in mind. Right now there are 4 eye levels of the crafting. We'll get to that in just a second. But after you get that kind of base piece, depending on what you want, you also need to get 2 stat scrolls from Inscription, which are kind of things like saying, hey, I want like a haste rune and a mastery rune. That way I'm going to say this piece I'm going to craft is going to be haste mastery, right? So you have to pick one of those 4 runes for each of the slots. You have to pick maximum 2 of these runes. You can't just do just haste. You have to pick 2. We're probably going to go haste mastery, but who knows, things might change. And then you also need Soul Ash, which is a new currency that you get from inside of Torghast. So doing your kind of weekly Torghast runs, I think every week you can craft a rank 1 legendary, so you get 100 Soul Ash a week, give or take, something like that. So you should have a legendary or 2 but by the time the raid comes out, or by the time Mythic Plus Dungeons come out, which is good. And the last part you need is the legendary recipe for that actual power. Now this was kind of the main reason I wanted to make this video, just because this isn't very clear about how this works. Some of our legendary powers actually don't have drop locations yet, like meaning we don't know where you get them. A lot of them do, so we're going to go over those in just a second. All right. And like I mentioned before, there is a kind of crafting or upgrading system right now inside of this. So you can craft a eye level rank 1 195 piece, a 210 rank 2 piece, 225 rank 3, or 235 rank 4. Now, depending on the rank, it will actually cost you more Soul Ash. And again, that base item you need does have to be a higher eye level as well. So you kind of have a few different hoops you want to jump through to get that higher eye level. So hopefully you have a tailor friend or a jewel crafting friend and maybe an inscriptionist to help you out here. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy all this stuff on the auction house. It might be kind of expensive at launch, so keep that in mind. I'm probably going to go tailoring on launch just for this reason. I've never actually been a tailor. I don't think I've actually ever had a tailor even. So I'm going to try that out this expansion to see how that goes. Now, just a note here, crafting legendary versus upgrading it in terms of Soul Ash is the same cost. So that's good. The problem is every time you want to upgrade, you do need a new base item piece. So in that regard, you are kind of saving money or saving, materials by just doing a rank 4 rather than upgrading. But from a Soul Ash perspective, that is the same cost, right? If you want to upgrade from a rank 1 to rank 4 or just craft a rank 4, that's going to cost you the same amount of Soul Ash regardless, so don't worry about that. So I think a probably good piece of advice here, just because upgrading is only giving you more secondaries and intellect, it's a stamina too. It's not actually making the power more effective. So you really only need that rank 1 to get the actual big DPS bump here, and the upgrading is kind of just like it's a nice to have thing to just get the more stats and that good stuff, right? So keep that in mind. You probably just want to do like craft 1 rank 1 legendary before the raid releases, before dungeons release, and then kind of after they do some tuning, maybe upgrade that one or craft a second one depending on what they've done. You do kind of want to be careful here though, because Blizzard could nerf a legendary power and then you're kind of stuck with, oh, I spent all this money making this one item at rank 4. I could have made 4 legendary powers at rank 1 and kind of been okay if they nerf something, right? So do keep that in mind. That is kind of one of the downsides with this system, since you aren't necessarily stuck with what you have. You have that choice of what you want to make, so keep that in mind, guys. Okay, so now let's move on and look at where you find each of these legendary powers. Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to go over priest-specific stuff. So we have generic priest legendaries, shadow priest-specific legendaries, and then just kind of overall like generic legendaries that every class can use. So starting off with the priest-specific ones, we have Cauterizing Shadow. It's actually a pretty great healing thing if you kind of want to forgo damage for a second and just help your group out with the healing. This is on the waist or feet slot, and this drops from Mordretha, which is a boss inside of Theater of Pain. So definitely an attainable legendary kind of early on. Next up, we have Twins of the Sun Priestess. This is that kind of power infusion someone else legendary. Goes on the head or shoulder slots. This guy actually drops, the power itself drops from the Stone Legion generals inside of Castle Nathria, right? So that means you can't get this power until you step foot into normal Castle Nathria once that launches, and hopefully you get the drop. The drops do look like they're personal loot though, and meaning that, multiple priests can get the same thing on the same run, so don't worry about that. But yeah, not something you're going to be able to get early on necessarily. And again, it is kind of a later boss in the raid. So that might be something where, depending on your guild's progression, it might take you a second to get there. You might not get there on the first day. We'll see. Next up, we have Vault of the Heavens, which is the Leap of Faith legendary. This guy goes on a wrist or finger slot. And this comes from the PvP honor vendor. So you can see just from these first three, we have a good spread of different slots they go on. One drops from PvP, dungeon, and raid, kind of spread all that stuff out, right? Now, to note here, though, some of these guys, like, for example, you crafted on a helm piece, shoulders, chest, all that good stuff, you're going to get a lot of intellect and a reasonable amount of secondary stats on that piece, right? Compared to if you, say, crafted on, like, a wrist or belt, that kind of thing, you're not going to get as much stats from that. So that will actually kind of influence the total DPS gain of a power. It's not just the effect itself, it's also what are the stats you're getting by equipping a piece like that, right? Or what are the stats you're kind of losing out on by not putting it in a better slot. So you're going to have to kind of think about what slot you want on some of these guys, because there is some overlap here, which might help, but that also means that depending on what, do you want more secondaries? Do you want more intellect? That might change your decision, right? Okay, so moving on to the Shadow Priest specific legendaries. So we have 4 of these guys. Now, the first 2, really interestingly enough, which is Eternal Call of the Void and Painbreaker Psalm, do not currently have a known drop location. We don't know where these guys come from. It literally doesn't say anywhere in the game. We've asked Blizzard to kind of give us a better info here. No one's responded, so hopefully sooner or later, because Eternal Call of the Void is actually looking to be a pretty strong legendary, like a good number 2 slot for us, and a very consistent damage legendary depending on what you want. So it's going to be kind of weird to just not know where this comes from on launch, but who knows, guys? It could be World Quest drop for all we know. Now, Eternal Call of the Void goes on wrist or hand slot, so not the best in terms of stat distribution, and then Painbreaker Psalm is on chest or back, giving you a big boost there if it's on that chest piece. Okay, moving on then to Shadowflame Prism. This guy goes on the head or hand slot. This drops from Muzala, which is the last boss in the Other Side dungeon. So this is amazing right off the bat. This is by far our best in slot legendary right now. Sure, it might get nerfed, but we'll see how much that actually affects it. So it's going to be really nice to have a generally great legendary throughput-wise, both for dungeons and raiding, right off the bat there from a dungeon. So you can get this day 1 of the expansion, which is going to be nice. And lastly, for our Shadow-specific legendaries, we have Talbodar's Stratagem, which is a waist or leg slot. And similar to another legendary, this drops from Castle Nathria itself. This is the Council of Blood boss specifically, which is about halfway through the raid or so. So you're going to get it kind of reasonably early on, but, it's not that great of a power anyway, so at least right now, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, then moving on to the generic legendaries. The first one I want to cover here is Sephuz's Proclamation, or Sephuz's Proclamation, whatever you want to say. This guy can actually go on 3 slots, so neck, shoulder, or chest. And this guy you actually buy from the PvP honor vendor right now. So this one was looking kind of okay because it is kind of that crit increase, but because it's on a PvP honor vendor, it might be a little bit detrimental to get if you only do PvE, so that kind of stinks. But again, the whole system is not very helpful if you only want to do one piece of content. You're going to have to spread yourself a little bit thinner if you want all these powers, right? Next up, we have Norgannon's Sagacity. Okay, I'm not good at pronouncing words. We know this. So this is the kind of movement legendary similar to what we had on the Norgannons from Legion. So if you want this, it goes on the legs, feet, or back slot. And then you actually buy this from the Court of Harvester reputation at Honored, which I believe is the kind of Venthyr or Revendreth zone reputation. Next up, we have Judgment of the Arbiter. This goes on wrist, hands, or finger. Another kind of generic damage legendary. I don't know how good this is yet. Gonna have to wait for the Sims to really show that. This is from the Avowed reputation, and again, also honored with that. And the last guy here, you guessed it, another reputation. This is Maw Rattle. Goes on legs, feet, or hand slot. Again, still waiting on Sims for this guy. I don't imagine it'll be super great, but we'll see. And this is Undying Army reputation at honor level, okay? So I guess kind of a healthy mix of like reputation, honor, raids, mythic plus, PvP. There's not a whole lot of stuff in here from like arena or like conquest. So if that's kind of your thing, that doesn't seem to be a location for these powers. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's, you know, they want to make it more available to people. Who knows? But that's what we have for right now, guys. Okay. So again, we're looking pretty okay as far as Shadow is concerned. We can just hop in to other side on like day 1, day 2 of the expansion, get one of our best powers, and then we're kind of on our merry way. But who knows about the other ones, guys? Hopefully Blizzard updates us with what comes out where. Who knows? We'll see what happens. All right, guys, before I end this video, again, big thank you to all the folks that are supporting me on Patreon, on Twitch, whatever you name it. The overflowing of support on that and like Twitter has been just frankly amazing. So thank you guys so much. This video actually came from an idea on one of my patrons that they gave me. So I think this is already helping out, kind of make the content that you guys want to see. So thank you so much again to all of the great people that are supporting me on Patreon. Okay, guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.